Eshtaol. So God was with Samson. Samson was a Nazirite. Even before he was born, at his birth, he was going to be a Nazarene set aside for a specific purpose. Samuel had great physical strength. We look at Samuel. I'm going to try not to do that. I told myself when I was doing this lesson, don't say Samuel, don't say Samuel, don't say Samuel. And I've already done it twice now. So I'm going to, if you'll pardon me, and I'll try not to say that word when I'm thinking Samson. It's Samson. We're talking about Samson. Samson is who we're talking about. Samson was the great man of strength in the Bible. Samson was a judge early on. That other guy, he was the last judge of Israel. But we're talking about Samson. I got to get this into my head, y'all, and I hope you'll forgive me. I got to get it into my head. I thought it was there, but it wasn't. So, as we look at Samson, he had this great strength. And this great strength was from God. In Judges 14, verses 5 and 6. Judges 14, verses 5 and 6. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now to his surprise, going down with his father and mother, but evidently they separated at some point. And Samson takes this young lion and he just rips it and tears it apart. It's like you and me going after a roast chicken. We rip it apart. I did that on purpose so you'll start thinking about it was an accident. It was an accident. But we understand this tearing apart, but Samson had this great strength. And this was from God, and this was going to be used for a purpose. God had an intention behind this. In chapter 14 and verse 16, chapter 14 and verse 16, then Samson's wife wept on him and said, "You only hate me." Nope, that's not it. Verse 19, that's supposed to be Judges 14 and verse 19. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of their men, took their apparel, and gave the changes of clothing to those who had explained the riddle. So his anger was aroused, and he went back to his father's house. Samson here kills 30 men. Now, we're going to talk about the why about this in just a minute. But Samson kills 30 men. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he kills 30 men. In Judges 15 and verse 8, Judges 15 and in verse 8. Again, we're talking about him attacking the Philistines. So he attacked them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Edom. And so he attacked them hip and thigh. Hip and thigh. That's like us saying he fought tooth and nail. He gave no quarter. He had no mercy on them. He attacked them. This is the hip and thigh thing. It's a proverbial statement. And have you ever gone at something hip and thigh? Have you ever gone at something tooth and nail where you just gave it your all and you were going to accomplish this, you were going to do this no matter what? This is how Samson fought. There was another S word there. I didn't think about him. This is how Samson fought. And it was a great slaughter as he did this. And Samson was this strong man. Judges 15, 14 through 17. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came again with it. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, and the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. And so it was when he had finished speaking that he threw the jawbone from his hand and called that place Ramoth Lehi. Can you imagine? I can't. He's killing 1,000 men with the jawbone, not with a sword, not with a spear, a sword, not with a sword or a spear, not with a knife, but with a bone. God was with him. God was using Samson. We got to remember this. In Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 33, he's listed here as one who is faithful. And the implication is in all of this, Samson was faithful in serving God and being of service to God. Even though he did some strange things. Samson's problems arose when he seemed to have a worldly eye. He seemed to look at things and desire things that he should not have. Now, maybe this was maybe part of it was because of his physical stature. We know sometimes those who have a physical beauty, a physical strength about them, they tend to have an ego about them. I don't, so you don't have to worry about that. They have this great. They think they're worth something. They think they're mightier and greater than others. Maybe that was part of it. We don't know. But what we see in him is he had a worldly eye. We go back and look at Judges chapter 14 and verse 1. Judges 14 and verse 1. Now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Then his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren or among my people that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Go get her, for she pleases me well. Let me see. She is literally, she is right in my eyes. But his father did not know that it was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. And so, as hard as it is for us to understand, this is part of a larger plan. This is part of a larger circumstance than we can understand. But still, Samson, he had this wandering eye. We know from Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 3 and 4, that the Israelites were not to intermarry with the peoples that were surrounding them. They were supposed to marry inside of Israel. And his father and mother bring this up to him. But he says, Get her, for she pleases me, or get her, for she is right in my eyes. He had this wandering eye. Samson, Judges 14 and verse 7, Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And he takes her for his wife. Then we get this riddle thing, this riddle that comes up beginning in verse 9. So his father went down to the woman, and Samson gave a feast there, and a young man, for young men used to do so. And it happened when they saw him, they brought him 30 companions to be that we may hear it. And he said, Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Now for 3 days they could not explain the riddle, but it came to pass on the seventh day that they had said to Samson's wife, Entice your husband, that he may explain the riddle to us, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us in order to take what is ours? Is that not so? Then Samson's wife wept on him and said, You only hate me. You do not love me. You have posed a riddle, bless you. You have posed a riddle to the sons of my people. You did, but you have not explained it to me. And he said to her, Look, I have not explained it to my father or my mother. So should I explain it to you? Now she had wept on him the 7 days while the feast lasted. And it happened on the seventh day that he told her, because she had pressed him so much. Then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city came to him on the seventh day before the sun went down. What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of their men. We read verse 19 before. He kills 30 men to pay off his wager. Samson is an interesting figure. I know that this was all in God's plan, but still we see Samson with a wandering eye. Samson making bets. Samson, in order to pay off this bet, he goes out and kills 30 men and takes their clothing. Samson is this strange figure, and sometimes it's really hard for us to grasp. But whether we fully get it or fully grasp it or not, this was part of God's plan. This was part of God's plan in dealing with the Philistines. The Philistines were conquering Israel. They were a scourge to Israel. And this is God's way of taking care of that scourge, the Philistines. Samson kills 30 men to pay off a bet. Very, very weird, very strange. Then we look at, Samson continues to satisfy his physical desires. Judges 16 and verse 1. Judges 16 and verse 1. Now Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there and went to her. So he goes in to see this harlot, this prostitute. This is where he's surrounded, or the Philistines come to get him, and he breaks the gates, and he takes the gates up to the hill, and to the top of the hill, and he plants the gates at the top of the hill. We don't know if the harlot may have told him. Who knows? We're not told. But this shows a great strength of his, and he takes the gates of the city and removes them. In Judges chapter 16, and then we go to verse 4. Afterward it happened that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Now, the reason I went over to Proverbs earlier is because Solomon tells his son, don't even go into the wicked woman. Don't even go into the immoral woman. Yeah, she looks really good. Yeah, she looks enticing, but don't even go that way. And yet Samson, over and over again, he seems to go that way. He seems to find the woman that he should not find. And he continues to go into her no matter what. He goes into her when he should not. Samson didn't have a Solomon. Samson he should have listened to the law. He should have listened to his parents. But over and over again, it seems Samson goes with the lust of his eyes, the lust of the flesh. And he loves Delilah. As we go on and we read about Samson and Delilah, so Delilah said, and the lords of the Philistines, verse 5, and the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. That was a lot of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great... So I like this approach. Please tell me where your great strength lies. And what may bind you to afflict you? And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So the lords of the Philistines brought up 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried. And she bound him with them. He tells her, and she tries it. Again, this is it's weird. It's strange. She asks him, and he lies to her. These are these times, and for whatever reason, God overlooked this. God had a greater plan for Samson. As he was to deliver Israel from the Philistines, from the overlord Philistines. She binds him up. She binds him up. Now men, in verse 9, now men were lying in wait, staying with her in the room, and she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he broke the bowstrings as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire, so the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, look, you have mocked me and told me lies. Oh, there we go. Now, please tell me what you may be bound with. And so he said to her, if they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. Then Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them. She did this again and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And the men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like a thread. Delilah said to Samson, until this time you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks of my head into the web of the loom, then she wove it tightly. He must have been really sound asleep for her to weave his hair tightly into this womb. So she wove it tightly with the batten of the womb and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he woke from his sleep and pulled out the batten and the web from the loom. Over and over again, she's talking to him. She's asking him. And he tells her a lie each time. He doesn't tell her the truth. He doesn't tell her the great secret of his strength. Then she said to him, How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times. You have not told me where your great strength lies. And it came to pass, when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death, that he told all of his heart and said to her, no razor has ever come upon my head, nor have for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. So she pesters him, she pesters him, and finally Delilah gets the answer to Samson's strength. He lies to her, he tells her things. Finally, he opens up his heart to her and tells her the secret of his great strength. And we go back and we think about this immoral woman in Proverbs chapter 5 that we've been studying about in the adult Bible class in Proverbs chapter 5. The end of the man who walks in to the immoral woman in Proverbs chapter 5 is death. He's lured in by this seductress in Proverbs chapter 5. And he doesn't pay attention to where he's going, to what he's doing. And yet he continues to stay with this immoral woman. He stays with her. But his end is only death. Samson goes into Delilah. She pesters him. She nags him. She harangues him. But his end is only going to be his death. He reveals his secret, the great secret of his strength. If you cut my hair, I'm going to be just like any other man. So we read on just a little bit here. He told her all his heart in verse 17. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, said, Come up once more, for he has told me all his heart. So the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought her the money in her hand, and she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. And so all the other rest of the time, Delilah's doing the work. But now this time, it's not Delilah who cuts the hair. It's one of the Philistines. They come in and they cut the hair. I just think this is it's an important difference. She knows that the truth has finally been told, and she invites his captors to come in and do this last deed, this last thing. And his hair is cut off, and he loses his strength. Instead of leaving, he continues to stay with Delilah. She's pestering him daily. Tell me. What's your secret? What's your secret? Tell me. What's your secret? Why are you lying to me? Do you love me? Don't you love me? Tell me. And I guess it wears him out. I don't know. I guess it wears him out. But Samson continues to stay with her. Look over at James chapter 4 and in verse 7. James 4 and in verse 7. James 4 and verse 7, James simply writes, therefore submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. See, we're not supposed to give in to sin. We're supposed to resist the devil. We're supposed to resist the sin that is around us. And yet, Samson did not. He stayed right where he was. Look over at Hebrews chapter 12 and in verse 1. Hebrews chapter 12 and in verse 1. If we do not resist sin, this is what happens. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, of which Samson is one, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. You see, sin easily catches us if we don't resist, if we don't say no, if we don't stop. Sin catches us. We're supposed to lay aside these things, lay aside the ways, the thoughts of the world around us. We're supposed to lay aside. We're not supposed to fall to our lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, or the pride of life. We're not supposed to fall to that. We're supposed to set those things aside. And yet Samson stays right where he is. He doesn't change. And eventually he tells her all. And his hair's cut off, and he became a type of court jester or a buffoon in the temple of Dagon for the Philistines. They would drag him in there to perform for them. Now, I don't know what he's performing, but they took him into the temple to perform for him. Judges chapter 16, verses 23 through 25. He becomes a type of court jester. It seems that he finally learns humility. This is Chip speaking. I don't see a whole lot of humility in Samson up to this point. He seems to use his strength. He seems to know that he's stronger than anybody else. He seems to relish in his strength. I'll make a bet with you, but you're going to end up, even if I lose, it's going to cost you. And finally, we see Samson, it seems, learning a little bit of humility. In 1 Peter chapter 5 and in verse 5. 1 Peter chapter 5 and in verse 5. Peter writes, likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility, for God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. This is one of those times that we really ought to look at ourselves. In James chapter 4 and verse 10, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up. This is there's different occasions in our life when we really need to take a good, hard, long look at ourselves. Do I have any humility about me at all? Am I a humble person? We've got to be willing to take that mirror out, set it up, plant it firmly, so that we can step back and we can take a good old long look at the whole picture of who you are, of who I am. You're not looking at me, I'm not looking at you. We're looking at ourselves in this mirror from head to toe. And the interesting thing about this mirror, I've never brought this up before, but the interesting thing about this mirror is you know how a mirror shows your reflection on the front? The interesting thing about this mirror is you don't have to turn around, but it sees your backside too. It sees all of you. It sees the open things that everyone else sees, but this mirror, your mirror of self-examination, it sees your inner things too that no one else can see. That's the strength, that's the power of this mirror, because you're truly, when you look at it with an open and honest heart, you're really examining yourself, head to toe, top to bottom, bottom to top, front to back, side to side, inside and out. Inside and out. And it seems somewhere along the way at this point, maybe Solomon learned a little bit of humility. We're not told a great deal about Samson. Samson did it again. Solomon didn't have a whole lot of, it seems Solomon didn't have a whole lot of humility too, so I'll just go with that. But it seems somewhere along the way that Samson seemed to learn some humility. Again, we have to realize that this is all of the Lord at work. Samson was a tool of the Lord. In Judges 13, verses 3 through 5, God tells Samson's mother that he's going to be a Nazirite from birth and he's going to deliver Israel from the Philistines. God's using him for a specific purpose. In Judges 14 and verse 4, the Lord used the impulsiveness of Samson in his plan to overthrow the Philistines. Judges 14 and 4. Judges 16 and 20, the Lord departed from Samson when his hair was cut off. Remember, part of the Nazirite vow, no razor can touch his head. No, he can't cut his hair. And from birth, his hair was never cut. This was all part of the Lord's plan. In Judges 16, look over at Judges 16 and verse 23. Judges 16 and verse 23. I'll get there just a second. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, "Our God has delivered us into our hands, Samson, our enemy." When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our land, and one who multiplied our dead." So what happened when their hearts were merry, they said, "Call for Samson that he may perform for us." So they called for Samson from the prison, and he performed for them. We don't know what he did. And they stationed him between the pillars. They're having a good old time at the expense of Samson, and they're praising their God. And here we can read in verse 28, Samson's words. Then Samson called to the Lord, saying, "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars which supported the temple, and he braced himself against them, one on his right and the other on his left. Then Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed in his life. I don't know how big this temple was, but it was pretty big. God uses Samson in all that he is to bring judgment upon the Philistines who were conquering his children, the children of Israel. Samson is a strange example of faith. He turned to God, but there's the sin in Samson's life that we see, his poor choices. But he turned to God. He returned to God. Samson is a reminder for us that if we return to God, if we turn to God, God's going to be there. God's going to be there for us, as he was with Samson. Yet Samson is such a strange figure. Samson is one of those figures that should really cause us to take a look at ourselves. Does our pride set us up for a fall? Are we humble at all? Do we have an eye for the things of the world, or do we have a mind that's set on service to God? Does it take us going down to the very bottom of the depths of sin and despair in order for us to rise back up? Should we be strong and faithful all of our days? Samson is one of those figures that really should cause us to stop and think. We're taking a look at ourselves in our mirror. What do you see? When you look in your mirror, what do you see? Do you see the strong man who's able to take on mighty foes? Do you see the man who's able to tear apart your enemies, your beasts? Do you see the man who's humiliated in error, in sin? Do you see someone who's willing to stand up in the strength of God and serve him? Who do you see when you look in the mirror? What part of Samson do you see when you look in the mirror? He's a strange example of faith because of his poor choices, because of his sin. We know God's going to be there. He is listed among the faithful as he delivered Israel from the Philistines, but he returned to God in his humility. And so the simple question is there a Samson in you? Which one? Which Samson is in you? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Will you return to God? Does it take your fall to return to God? Or will you turn to God and be faithful to God before you fall? Because we're all ripe for a fall. We're just teetering on the edge. As we look at Samson and this example of faith as it's given to us in Hebrews chapter 11, we need to be willing to look at ourselves. Where do you stand today? As a Christian, where do you stand today? Are you serving God? Are you faithful to God? Are you trying to be faithful to God? Are you humble? Are you willing to serve God with all of your strength and all of your might? You have a great strength within you. Are you willing to serve God with all of your strength? If you're here today as a Christian and your life isn't as it should be, take up your strength, return to God, and choose to serve God with all of your strength, with all of your energy. We're supposed to love the Lord our God with all of our strength. Just one of the aspects. Won't you do that today? Go to God in prayer. Ask for the forgiveness of your sins. He's just. He will forgive you. He's there to forgive. If you need the prayers of the congregation, let us know so that we can pray with you and pray for you. If you're here today as one who's outside the body of Jesus Christ, you need to be baptized into Jesus for the forgiveness of your sins. That's the first recognition that you're at the bottom and you need the salvation that's offered by God through Jesus. Won't you be baptized? Won't you obey the gospel today? Everything is ready. If you're subject to the invitation, and we can be of any aid or any service today, we'd be encouraged if you come forward.